And in this week's discussion, we get to change the tone of the show a little bit to a little bit of a happier note. We get to talk to Josh about a few different things. So, the first time we have people on the show, we normally want to get to know a little bit about their WoW background. So, why don't you tell us when you first started playing WoW, when you quit, or if you quit? I'm assuming you quit the same time I did. I can't remember, but tell us a little bit about your WoW career before Classic.
All right, but my blood is boiling now, Bob. We've moved in another direction. But
I know.
I'm here. I'm good to go. I'm pumped up.
Tell me really what your thoughts are about Activision. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God, that's 2 hours for another time. Yeah. No, look, I mean, long story short, for what it's worth, like, yeah, a lot of people who listen to me know that I played the game back in the day. Yes, I played a rogue. I started in like late 2006, about 4 or 5 months before TBC came out. I just dinged 60 about 3 weeks before TBC dropped. I'll never forget standing in line at the midnight launch for TBC, and actually seeing WoW fans in person for the first time. Like, wow, there's
doing dances and everything else.
They exist. Like, it's not all bullshit. These are real people who actually play the game with me and everything. I really will never forget that. But it's funny because I remember so little. I'm constantly astonished by how well you guys and so many fans remember things from back in the day, because I just remember nothing from my vanilla and TBC and Wrath hours.
Mel doesn't remember anything. I remember a bunch. Yeah, it's crazy.
But in saying that, I was incredibly casual, and I say casual, but I was still playing, I don't know, let's say somewhere between 10 and 15 hours a week. I was going through law school at the time. Would have loved to have played more, but just didn't in the end. And I didn't raid, so it's such a different aspect of playing now for me, a different like kind of play style for me now, because I didn't raid through Classic either, really, but towards the tail end, all I've been doing over the last 3 months is doing pug raids, and it's such a contrast to how I played back in the day. I'm really, really enjoying how it is now, and I don't look back in the rearview mirror and long for the old WoW days when I played 15 years ago. I was such a loner in the game. I had no friends in game. I had, no friends IRL that played the game. I was so happy just, and I played a rogue, and I really was the personification of my character. I was just this loner who just, walked through the world and stealthed around and did my own thing. And I enjoyed it, but I am, having my mind opened, even though there's still an element of that play style with me now. I do tend to enjoy being on my own. I feel very guilty when I ask other people for their time to assist me in game, even though that is one of the pillars of MMORPG gameplay, is building friendships and building a guild that will answer the call when you put it out there. The bat signal is thrown in the air and, yeah, Josh, we'll come and help you. The bat signal is dusty and I leave the cover on. I hate using it. I really feel bad saying to someone, even if it's a friend, hey mate, have you got 10 minutes to help me with something? I don't want to do that. And so I still struggle with that. But like, it's good that I have made the friends.
That's so funny, because most people's recollections of vanilla are about the community. And about, I guess I don't say most people, I shouldn't say that, because most people I've talked to, I guess, and most people that actually raided and were in a guild, their recollections about vanilla were very community based, and they felt like that's what went horribly wrong later on, is that it wasn't as community based and you didn't have to ask people for help and make these relationships. So that's hilarious that you started there and you didn't have that.
Yeah, and I'm doing the opposite thing now, as I said, and it really does, fall hand in hand with the mirror effect of how your real life might be going versus how your virtual life might be going. Because, like I said, 15 years ago when I was going through law school, and really up until recently, I had an incredibly social real life. I was, life of the party. I would go out drinking all the time. I loved to go to bars. I loved nothing more than grabbing a couple of fucking pitchers of beer with my mates and just staying out till 4 o'clock in the morning all the time. And just was always sort of out of the house. I was playing sports. I was doing all this stuff. And like I said, I had no friends online. I didn't really engage much with the WoW community. Whereas now it's the complete inverse of that, where I am so entrenched in the WoW community in terms of friends that I've made and spending time on Discord talking to people about the game all the time. In answer to that, my real life, I have really sort of fallen away from my IRL friends, whether it's just a progression of life as well, that, I'm 38 years old and you do get a little bit older and the focus starts to become family more than friends. I do not see my friends anymore. I don't even talk to them. And it's not because of any animosity or any falling out. It's just the way it's gone. And I've been more happy to dive into a virtual life than a real life as I get older. And I sort of am in awe of the people that can have a healthy version of both, because I've never lived a life with that scenario playing out.
Well, it's the same thing I talked to Mel about. Like, we hang out with so many people. Like, COVID wasn't that bad for us because we have so many friends in the guild. I'm sorry to anybody who's lost anybody. I'm saying the quarantine wasn't as bad for us because we have so many friends, like we get to talk to them all the time and they're just right there instead of having to make plans to meet somewhere, yada, yada, yada. It's a really cool thing.
I would love to throw out my only to be fair for the podcast.
I was going to do it too.
Sorry, to be fair, Mel, you're talking about how you had, or like most people's memories from Classic were about the community. I've never heard you or Bob.
I said most people I know.
Sorry, but I've never heard you or Bob talk about the community when you played. I've only heard you guys talk about your 60-hour raid week and how terrible it was. But like, I've never heard you like bring up a person or like anyone who.
Okay, but it was
honestly, we didn't like them. Like, we didn't like a lot of them. Like, a lot of them used bad gamer words. Like, a lot of them were mean to women, and I mean, we were only there because we wanted gear, and we sat through it because we wanted gear.
That's not true. That's not true. I enjoyed the people, but to be fair, once when Bob and I met, I was a sorority girl. I was 19. I was not interested in anything but going out and partying and having fun. And when we met, he was also appearing to be the same way. And then he tells me about this game. I give it a try, whatever. And then I'm a super competitive person, so I really dig in, right? I really want to be good at this. And it was about the community you built, because if it was just about Bob and I, it probably would have faltered way long ago.
Yeah, we had some friends in the guild, but we didn't usually hang out with them outside of the guild. We usually hung out. Correct, we had a lot of real life friends that played the game. But
it was still the community.
But hold on, this isn't about us. This is about Josh.
I know, but
no. I'm loving the extended conversation. I hate it when it's about me.
I struggle with not talking. Okay.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I just think we've told this story on the podcast before. Is all. So Josh, how long? Like, did you ever play private servers? Like, none of us here played private servers.
So when I started the show just over 3 years ago, there's definitely a part of me that, and maybe it's one of the reasons that I pushed as hard as I did with the show. It's funny because I've never been accused of this online, whereas many other content creators have, and I kind of got a giggle out of it because I've never been accused of being a fraudster when it comes to content creation. I've been incredibly honest from day one with my lack of knowledge about the game, my level of skill with the game, and I think people did appreciate that I wasn't doing the gamer ego thing where you're like, I'm the fucking greatest player in the world, get on my level, you fuckwits, blah, 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 blah.
And so many content creators do that.
Sorry, Bob?
Oh, just so many content creators do that. They make these 10-minute YouTube videos that they research everything. Like a podcast is different. You can't know everything we're going to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, and so.
Yeah, I think it's more that in gaming in 2021 and with the advent of, competitive gaming and professional gaming across so many different genres, that it really has flushed out. Let's be honest. Gaming has changed dramatically in a relatively short period of time, and it's moved from a fun, passionate hobby that we do to kill some time into a very, very edgy, competitive, money-making industry. And with that has brought out an exacerbation of ego across the board, and people will not accept or even listen to anyone who shows any sense of being average or less at a video game. You simply have no clout, or your words carry no weight if you can't display elite skill at the given game that you are discussing. And people just quite simply give the impression that they will accept nothing less. If you want to be on YouTube, if you want to be a streamer, you better fucking be the best, or you are nothing to me, is the pervasive theory that sort of comes out.
I feel like that's the vocal minority.
No, I don't. I would make the argument that that's the problem with the Overwatch League, is that they make these ex-players be coaches, and they have no clue how the rest of the game works besides their specific roles, and everybody thinks just because you're good at a game, you know it in and out. And I don't think that's the case, but sorry.
Yeah.
It's definitely more prevalent in first-person shooters in those communities, I think, for sure. But, it goes hand in hand with what we highlight as, what are the top toxic communities game by game. And we do talk about COD and stuff being up there. But, funnily enough, World of Warcraft is often listed not far behind. And because there is a competitive element to World of Warcraft via PvP and via Mythic Plus that has introduced that side of the gaming world to us as well. So what I'm getting at is, it was very hard to begin creating content as a know-nothing person. But, I never wanted to go down that avenue and try to pump myself up. So I think just being, honesty truly was the best policy. But back to your private server question, which is the spawn point of all of this. I'd never heard of private servers, which is bizarre, prior to starting the show. And I didn't try my first private server until like a month or two into the show. I remember some private server did a fresh rollout like a month after the show started, and I played for a little bit with a few listeners. But I had no idea this scene existed. And the reason I bring up the fraud comment, sorry, I'm doing a very roundabout argument here, but it all circles back eventually. The reason I bring up the fraud argument is I felt like a bit of a fraud because I didn't know about private servers and I didn't know about Nestarius. And whilst I was sitting around for years pining for World of Warcraft as it was because I didn't like retail, there was this whole movement happening in the shadows that I didn't know about. And I feel like because my name wasn't on that petition, I do feel a little bit fraudulent to now be here championing no, seriously, like I champion the game in such a way and I love it so dearly, but there are people out there who have been fighting for it much harder than me over the years. And so I feel guilty over that. So I think it is a little bit disingenuous sometimes when I do the show to be like, I love WoW Classic. And there's a lot of people listening who are like, not as much as me, you fuckwit. And they're right.
But I don't think you should feel that way, because I feel like, yes, you feel like I didn't put as much effort in, and so I don't deserve this. But at the same time, you are willing and capable of giving this voice to those people that maybe didn't have it, right? They didn't have the motivation or the confidence to put out a podcast, and you do. And so you were just giving them a voice.
That was kind of the accidental, what's the word I'm looking for? The brilliant accident that I fell into was the fact that I was so poorly versed with the game that I had to rely on other people to talk to in order to provide content. Because I sat down and I was like, right, I want a podcast. And I just started a podcast 2 months before Countdown to Classic, The Cinephiles, which is a movie podcast that Bob mentioned at the top of the show. And so we were like 2 months into that one. I was really enjoying podcasting. I'd done it 10 years ago in my late 20s with a few friends. You know, like every 20-something-year-old white guy feels the compulsion to do for whatever reason. I started up a podcast it was the Seinfelder podcast. It was the show about nothing. And I don't know why we think that people want to listen to that. And no one did, rightfully so. But the podcast bug never really left me. And I'd considered a career in radio. And it's funny because, sorry, you've opened up the rant bug here. So
go for it.
I considered a career in radio, and one of my sisters is actually very good friends with a very famous radio personality here in Australia. And he brought me into the radio station one day as a favor to my sister to give me a bit of a tour and a talk through what it might take to get involved in the radio industry. And he basically sat me down and said, look, mate, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You're 28 years old. If you want to get into this industry, you start you start getting educated and doing the work now, you'll maybe get behind a microphone in 7 to 8 years' time and you'll be 35, 36. And I was like, I don't have time for that. And he's like, yeah, very few people do. So that's why they all start when they're 21. So I ditched the radio idea and just said, well, all I really want to do is talk into a microphone and talk to people. And so I'll just do podcasting. So did the movie one. Then WoW Classic was announced. So I said, screw it. I want to do a WoW Classic podcast, but I'm really scared because I don't know the game. How can I do this? I drew up the game plan and went, right, talkback radio. It's got to be talkback radio. What's my one skill that I have? I can talk to people. I can interview people. I'm a lawyer. I professionally question people all day. And on top of that, an added skill is all I do at work every day is I speak to liars. I speak to people who are trying to lie to me and I am trying to call them out on their lies. That is actually what I get paid to do. So it comes with the added benefit of knowing when my spidey sense tingles when people are talking shit to me. So I had this dream of the Talkback Radio WoW podcast, and I had to go through the grind of like the first 20 episodes or so when nobody knew who I was and nobody gave a shit, of just reading through Reddit posts. And I thought, well, I hate it when YouTubers create a YouTube video and all they do is read back verbatim a blue post and call it like the news. And it's like, shut up. You didn't give me any insight. You didn't do anything. You just read it back to me. I could have read it on the website myself in a lower amount of time. But so I thought, I can't just get on the show and read Reddit posts and be like, here's what the people are talking about this week in WoW Classic. I actually have to add some form of commentary and expand the conversation myself. So I would sit down for hours and write these scripts. And they were if you go back and listen to the first 20 episodes, you can hear it's quite obviously scripted. I'm not talking naturally. It's not free-flowing monologues. It's me struggling to understand the game at the level that the people who were posting on Reddit did. And so I'd go through the best of Reddit and just write for hours and hours and hours these prepared scripts. And luckily enough, for whatever reason, even though I don't think it would necessarily fly now if I did it, people were receptive to that. And I think it was just I got in early, so people would just latch on to anything. And luckily enough, people didn't think I was a dickhead. So that was a selling point as well. But I think a lot of people
don't want to go through Reddit.
No, that's right. Yeah. A Reddit highlight thing. It was like it worked out for me. People don't want to either go there because they think it's a toxic place, or they do want to go there and they don't have the time in their day to read the highlights.
Right, it's a lot to sift through.
Yeah. So it was a fun little sort of highlight package of some deeper conversations.
But it's not what you wanted to do. Right?
No, fuck no. God, no, it's not what I wanted to do. It was just taking up too much of my time and I didn't have the mental capacity to really keep, writing these scripts because I was just, like I said, I was going to be found out as a fraud at some point if I kept going. So luckily enough, the show caught fire. And, you get that first person agreeing to an interview. Then you get that second person agreeing to an interview. And that's all it took. It literally
then
is
you've got clout.
It's just the spark that lights the fire. And you carry on from there. And so the best part about it is I never just wanted one guest. I really did want roundtable, long form discussions. And thankfully the show got to the point where it did get enough clout that I would have 4 or 5 or 6 people saying, I will come on as part of a group chat. And that's all I wanted. I wanted people sitting down like you're at a pub discussing the things that we love, because that's the experience that people don't get. And Bob, one of my biggest pieces of advice to you through this whole podcasting game has been, do something different. You have to fight to be different. And the one different thing that I've kind of carved a corner out of is, as WoW gamers, like I said, people, maybe they're not super social. Maybe they don't head out a lot to bars, and maybe they don't know a lot of people in their real lives who happen to love WoW. So they don't have these conversations at home or in the workplace or at the bar. Well, I bring the bar to you, and that kind of, well, I wouldn't say chill, because the show gets pretty hardcore, but like, I want to think that you can kick back with a beer and listen in like it's the chat that you would have had if, like I say, you were out and about and talking to people.
Well, I mean, that's basically kind of like how we actually got on the board. Is I just one day was like, just cold, DM'd Sal Daly. It was like, hey, we're a new podcast. We'd love to have you come on and talk about the Guild Onslaught and, what you do. And then all of a sudden we could get other guests because they saw Sal Daly was on, and it's like we just like to have conversations on this on this show, and that's what it's about. We don't ever pretend that we know everything, and that's what we do.
Although I am a little jealous. I feel like we got called out for being frauds all the time at the beginning. We'd post on Reddit, and people would be like, these idiots can't even do AQ in 45 minutes. They've got no idea what they're talking about.
We got called out at being frauds because we had a struggle with identifying our opinions as opinions. And
I hate that. I hate people who make that comment when they can't read the tone of a conversation, and like this. Oh my God, this is not just WoW. This is life in general. The amount of people on YouTube that go, well, that's just an opinion. No shit, it's a fucking opinion. Can't you tell by what I'm saying?
Do I need to say this is an opinion before every statement?
Yeah, before every statement. It's just like, if you can
before every statement, I will say opinion/fact.
Yeah, if it's not a fact, like, you're getting my opinion. I know, but
I mean, listen, I'll also say it. I'll be like, listen, this is just for me.
Well, you see me correct it is modified my behavior, because you'll see me correct myself. I'm like, nobody that I have personally encountered has said this. I don't want to speak for everybody.
Bob, it's another thing that you sort of reminded me of in talking about reaching out to Sal Daly, where you go like, you got to shoot your shot with podcasting as well. If there's, for whatever reason, anyone listening out there who has ever considered podcasting, like, there's really 3 pieces of advice that I'll give people. And like I said, number 1, Bob, was to be different, right? That's got to be your absolute at the top of the pile there. But then I think following closely behind that are things like shoot your shot. Like, I got some big guests on the show, and I was very, very thankful for that. Being able to get people like Rob Pardo,
Kevin Jordan
on the show, Kevin Jordan, and on top of that, like other guys in the industry, like Raf Costa and everything. These are heavy names in the industry, and you know why they came on my show? Because I asked them. Like that's it. You can't be afraid. You've just got to ask people.
For like people like Willie, every time he comes on the show, when we're done in post, he's like, thank you guys so much, because he spends his time making YouTube videos, but he loves talking about the game with like-minded people, and he doesn't get that opportunity. And, I've heard him thank you at the end of shows. Like, he just loves talking instead of talking to his YouTube comments. You know what I mean? So you take your shot, and like, they might just say yes. There's a lot of people that never answer me back. There's a lot of people that say they'll come on and then don't come on. Like, I've had multiple ones, One's your buddy who ghosted me after saying he was coming on the show, but no names.
Oh, right.
But yeah, it's just weird.
Well,
no, but could you guys imagine, like, based on what we do, could you imagine doing a YouTube video and then just connecting through comments?
Yeah, it's gotta drive those poor guys nuts.
It's a different ball game. Yeah, and YouTube comments can be brutal, like along with Reddit comments at the best of times. There's a strange side of gaming out there that rears its ugly head in commentary. And I'm not even talking about toxic commentary. I'm talking about also that people that just, I don't know, it's like they watch the video and they draw the completely wrong conclusions out of things, and they don't, anyway, that's a whole
They
other thing.
put
But,
words in your mouth, like Snowby was talking about on the show you were on yesterday, and he was just like, I didn't even make that argument, but you put it in the comments, you know?
Yeah. But like, I mean, my final thing is kind of an underrated thing about, WoW content and content in general is that, and you guys don't suffer from this, but so many people do. Just the ability to talk to people. Like it is such an underrated ability for someone to engagingly and casually keep a conversation going with a person they do not know, right? Here is a strange person. You've never said 2 words to each other. Go and talk to them. And I've worked a job before. I can't get into details, but like I've worked a job before where one of the skills needs to be talking to strangers, and they test you by saying, go up and strike conversations with strangers and we're going to watch and see how you go. And like, I've never had a problem talking to strangers. Like I talk to people about anything, but a lot of content does suffer from this. I don't really know how to keep a conversation flowing or make it seem natural and not awkward.
Definitely. You know where I think I actually got the skill that I have to do it? Like, I'm not saying I'm good, but I actually got it because I was a smoker when I was younger. And you're out smoking, outside of a bar, and there's someone else
freezing
there.
Your butt off.
Yeah, and you're talking to them, or I'm on campus outside, smoking during college, and I'm just striking up a conversation, and I think that helped me a ton with just being able to talk to people. And now, some people, like me or don't, but I oftentimes make friends, at BlizzCon and different events because I'm just super social, and I think that is definitely a skill.
He is.
I got mine from being a 1950s confidence man. I used to just con people all the time, left and right on the streets. And
oh my god! So I think I get mine from just my job. I guess I have to meet new families all the time, and I just have to run the conversation and meet them.
And we just don't care if we look stupid. Like, I don't care if I look dumb when I'm talking to somebody.
I tell people if they leave my job, and you guys don't know what I do, but if you leave work today and you don't feel like a belligerent idiot, then you've done it wrong.
Well, so you kind of already answered it, but so the Sinner Files was your first podcast, right?
Yeah, so I've talked about this a fair bit over the years where I'm like, it kind of does break my heart that my baby, my firstborn, the Cinephiles, it's nowhere near doesn't get anywhere near as much reach as Countdown to Classic does. And I understand why. I'm not here to sort of bitch about it because, like I said, I made the joke about, the group of white guys in their 20s who get together and feel it's their cultural responsibility to do a podcast together. But, the same thing applies to movie and popular culture podcasts. When you start to talk about genres, like every man, woman, and child has a movie podcast. It is a very, very deep ocean. And so we are just a drip in that ocean, and it's very, very hard to get an audience. And we believe in that show so much. And I have plugged it so much to people IRL where I'm like, I know I sound like a dickhead when I say this and everyone says this about themselves, but I'm like, this is funny. This is actually laugh out loud funny. And
it is, dude. The freaking Gollum clip where you guys were talking about my precious. I mean, I spit up my coffee in my freaking car and had to clean it off. Like it's a really good show.
Two of the two guys I do it with.
Honest.
Yeah,
I've never heard it before, but. Is it a podcast or is it on YouTube?
No, it's a regular podcast. Okay. So the two guys I do it with, they're lawyers that I work with. We work in the same office. We do the exact same job. And they're just two of the funniest pricks I've ever met in my life. And all the comedy comes from them. And I just I'm sort of in host mode as well over there, which is just my niche that I've carved out. I get to chill out a bit more and crack a joke more on that show than I do on Countdown to Classic. But it's something where it does, and Bob and Mel and you guys and Yip, I'm sure that you can relate to this a little bit, where you pour your heart and soul into something, and it does kind of break your heart when you believe in the quality of a product, but it doesn't catch fire with an audience. So that show hasn't grown in 2 years. It's got 1,000 people that listen to it. They tune in every episode. They're rampant fans. They write into us. They love what we do, but it just doesn't grow. Whereas Countdown to Classic erupted into this leviathan of a thing, and I was putting in half the effort in a weird way.
It's just like, but it's a smaller market you can jump into that will grow your other bigger market. Like just think about oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Kevin Johnson, Scott Johnson, who did the Instance. The Instance was huge, but he moved into film sack, and I believe that show's actually bigger now because of his fan base that he brought over from the other one.
I think it would also be bigger because he doesn't. I mean, he keeps the WoW show going, but I don't think he's been as interested in WoW for many years now. But even though he does the show every week,
right?
Yep.
But how much enjoyment do you get just from sitting down with your two buddies to talk about movies?
Oh, it's the best. And that's the thing. It's conversations that would have been happening anyway, and you just happen to hit record. So it's a very good excuse to use that time to hang out with friends as well. But yeah, so that started first, then Countdown to Classic came. Then I started doing only just recently, the Countdown After Dark episodes for my patrons. And so it's kind of like running 3 podcasts now. And it is very hard. And again, Bob and you guys, all of you on this show would know, when Countdown, when you're trying to grow a show, it really does. I got quite obsessive with how hard I tried to grow Countdown to Classic to a negative point where I was so tunnel vision with my love of Countdown to Classic that I forgot what was going on at home. There were parts where Patricia and I sort of talk about it now, and I wouldn't say we laugh about it, but we're glad we're past it. That, it was tough on the relationship where she was like, we were a brand new couple, and she's like, why does this guy care so much more about his podcast than me? And I sort of did to an extent. And I now, look back with such regret over how I just was so fascinated with the growth. But look, the only positive offshoot of that is because I put in all the hard yards then, I'm sort of reaping what I sowed now. But it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah, and Mel and I over the years have definitely struggled with different things, just in gaming, or we've had to find happy mediums. I really loved that first episode of Countdown After Dark. That's a podcast you can get Patreon only, subscribing to Josh's Patreon for $5 a month. It's a great bargain so far. So I would encourage anybody to go and sign up. But they talked about their relationship, and it was a really good episode, where you guys poured your hearts out. And I think there's a lot of gaming couples that probably struggle with the same things you guys did. Not even just podcast,
Right. We definitely have. We've struggled with, I get annoyed that he's podcasting so much. He gets annoyed with me when I don't want to watch a new YouTube video by Willie or Stay Safe or something. He's like, he turns it on and I'll put my headphones in and do something else. And he's like, we do a podcast, Mel. Why don't you want to watch this? And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm so all done with that right now. Nope, not going to do it. Yeah. And even though we do a podcast together and everybody thinks hey, our life is lovely bliss. It's like looking at Facebook pictures of people where they everything's fine and dandy over there. Granted, we are very happy and
yeah, I mean,
make it sound like we're
relationships are not 50-50. They're 100-100. And it's a lot of work. And if you stop working, the relationship stops. That's my advice to everybody for relationships, but we're not going to do that. We're going to move on to the next.
I'm just the third wheel here, and I'm 200% for Yip.
No, my advice, Yip, my biggest advice is date a gamer. For God's sakes, date a gamer.
Okay,
I know they're hard to find. No, but you had an open mind to it when you guys started out, which I think is much more open than a lot of people.
consistently, though.
Yeah, I think
It was not easy.
it's definitely, it's easier said than done to find a gaming partner.
Oh, it really is. It's very hard.
If you don't find a gaming partner, find somebody that's competitive, because that will transition if you can get them into gaming.
Yeah, the problem is it's hard to explain right off the bat. It's like, oh, you want to hang out? Not on Tuesday or Thursday, though. Sorry, I'm a tank. I can't miss my raid.
Yeah, so you have to pull a Bob where he just is like, yeah, let's hang out on Monday and we'll go to the bar. We'll do all sorts of fun stuff. And then, like 3 months after I've fallen for him, he's like, so World of Warcraft. And I'm like,
No.
what?
Yep, I've got it. Tuesday, you explain to them, look. Not to start this relationship off on a bed of lies, but I'm a professional hacky sacker, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's when my league gets together, and I just can't do those nights.
Or I play in a band.
They can accept WoW, right?
Yeah.
I've got band practice,
That might
but
be
we
the
just
way to
haven't got a
tackle it.
gig yet. Right.
Say you have a
man.
business meeting on Tuesdays and Thursday nights.
Right.
It
For
goes
me, it's
until
even
2
more than that.
a.m.
I love the podcast, but Tuesday raid, Thursday raid, Friday podcast. I've got a lot of scheduled WoW in my life. But
We're keeping you from love. I see. I'm sorry.
All right. So moving on. Real quick, though, I did want to ask you what your favorite expansion is. Real quick.
It's such a tough question. It
Wait,
really is.
when
I know
did you
it's
stop first?
I stopped about 3 months into Cataclysm.
Same.
Okay.
Same. The exact same.
It is a very, very popular point of exit for many people, right around the beginning of Cataclysm. Now, look, it's a really hard question, Bob. I mean, obviously, because I only played, like I said, Cataclysm made me leave. So I played Vanilla, I played TBC, I played Wrath. So it's a pretty limited choice. But like, I look at TBC and I look at Wrath and I really think about this. And whilst I lean towards Wrath, even though I don't want to answer Wrath. It's such a weird way to put it.
I do the same thing. I teeter between TBC and Wrath, but I really liked a lot that was in Wrath. There was just...
Let me put it this way. I think TBC is objectively the better expansion. That's my answer there.
Yep.
But I have more fond memories of Wrath personally.
And especially Wrath... beginning of Wrath, like first half of Wrath, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like the end of Wrath personally as well too, but
But why? Why do you guys think that is? Why do you have more fond memories of Wrath? What was such a fond memory of Wrath?
Well, looking for group is why I don't have like the fond memories.
Yeah, but I didn't ask why you don't have. I'm saying what.
It was just a really good expansion.
For me, I think because I gravitate more towards God, how do I put this? The creative side. This is such a stupid thing to say. The creative side of a game in terms of the soundtrack and the story. And I really think the Wrath soundtrack is one of the best ones. And I think it's better than TBC, to be honest with you.
Are you going to be mad that I've never played with music on?
I wouldn't be mad, but like all I'll say is you're the exact opposite to me, because I'm one of those people who, even though I podcast, 90% of the time I play the game, and people would think I'm crazy for doing this. I just play with the music on and nothing else. And it's bizarre because you've heard those tracks 1 million times. So why wouldn't you just have an audiobook or a YouTube video or a stream on or something like that? I don't know. Just more often than not, I just want to have the ambiance of the music playing because I enjoy the music.
I feel like I need to go through the different places with the music on because I have legit never heard it.
Oh, it's so good. I'll tell you what, Mel. I'll get not to plug myself too hard, but I'll give you a recommendation. If you go and check out episode 93 of Countdown to Classic, I'm gonna ask you one small favor, Mel. A physical challenge, if you will. I want you to go away and listen to the 90-minute conversation I have at the top of that episode, right? And then I want you to come back to me and talk to me about how you feel about the music in WoW. Okay?
Okay.
All right, hold on. Tell me that episode one more time.
93.
93.
Writing
It
it
is
down.
the best episode I've ever made. I'm so proud of that one, and the guest was absolutely phenomenal. It was a chat I had with Chimley. Anyway, I'm actually going to go listen to that again now that I've mentioned it. I love it so much. I've heard it 1,000 times. It's so, let me be really crude for a second, guys. It's like wanking in a mirror for me. Like, I listen to that episode all the time and like, fuck, I knocked this one out of the park. And my guest did as well.
Would you say you jizzed in your pants?
I know I'm the only freak who played past Wrath of the Lich King, but in Mists of Pandaria, I of course have the collector's edition. I would just listen to the soundtrack CD while I played, so it wasn't always the same zone I was in, but you also had like the full expanded songs, and they do a great job. Like the music is just amazing, and it really gets you into it.
A whole different era of WoW that I have never experienced.
If you haven't been to Stranglethorn with music on, you're missing out. That's all.
Because when I started with Bob, he said, "Okay, here's your settings. Turn the music off." And I said,
I always turn music off in every
and so I turned the music off.
Yeah,
so I do. Literally have never listened to it. I will say
it's because I'm PvP centric, though. It's because I want to hear the audio cues to know what to do next. That's why. It's not because I don't like music, though.
The one time I listened to it was when I logged into the TBC beta for the first time, and I was walking around and I was like, "What is that?" And then I was like, "Oh my God, my music's on."
But to couple up with that, like the other part of it is, like I said, when we talk about like, you know, creativity from the developers comes with the plot and the storyline. And Wrath of the Lich King had one of the greatest aces up its sleeve that so few other expansions have had. And like I said, I didn't pay much attention after Cataclysm, so I can't really speak too much on this, but I don't think they've been able to recreate this. But they had the ace up their sleeve of Arthas, and what Arthas brings with him is number one, a very well-known character. Number two, just a beloved character in an odd way. And also number three, it's a hard connection to a previous beloved title that people absolutely were very familiar with the lore and story of. So while in TBC, I just feel like TBC's, you know, if you call it the plot or storyline, I know generally MMO plots are supposed to be light, but I feel like TBC gets a little bit more credit than it maybe deserves, because I feel like it's still very much of that vanilla flavor where there's just these breadcrumbs of a story left around. And yeah, I get the whole Burning Legion thing is quite pervasive through everything that you're doing in Outland, but I don't feel like I'm playing through a story necessarily when I'm playing TBC, whereas with Wrath,
you get all those like scenes and stuff.
Yeah, you're really playing through a ongoing plot, and Arthas is this huge figure looming at the end, like this Darth Vader-like figure. I think that it's a way of storytelling that they haven't quite been able to replicate, not only in terms of delivery, but also in terms of having that ace up the sleeve in past connections. So you'll never get that again. And that's why my fond memories from Wrath, I'm a big story guy. It's a huge issue for me to have not only an important plot, but also a good one. So yeah, I mean, TBC, I think objectively is the stronger expansion from a game design perspective when you look in totality. But I think Wrath has perhaps more, fun things for me personally.
I think Arthas is really pinnacle there too, because oh my God, Bob, dual spec.
Sorry,
Arthas is because what you're describing is almost exactly the leveling experience in Shadowlands, which I'm not a super I really like on the rails, but it's really story driven, but it's missing any sort of is this even WoW? Like, I'm not sure what this is. These villains are like, who are they? Or the people they bring back in maybe in like a really odd way. But that Wrath of the Lich King cinematic, I can't watch it without choking up when it's like, the forest of Lordaeron whispered your name.
Oh,
Arthas.
yeah.
And you're just
so good.
Arthas.
I'm getting goosebumps just over your impersonation.
You know what I feel bad about is that, so I came into WoW with Bob, and I the lore, zero interest, right? But I
Well,
came
that's
in
because you didn't play the original Warcraft games. We did, you know.
correct, but I also think it was like my first introduction to like MMO and gaming in general, other than like Super Mario Brothers. But I think when I feel like I have the same feelings about Overwatch because I started Overwatch when it started. And the lore of those characters, I'm like super invested in. You know, the cinematics are amazing and I love it. And I just feel bad that I don't have that same, I don't know, nostalgia for WoW in that way. I still don't know much about the lore.
I will admit, this is full. Here's some full facts. I have retroactive nostalgia for the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic. I was not that interested in Wrath of the Lich King as it came out, as I think I was 14 or 15. Interesting, but I didn't appreciate it until like after it came out, and I was rewatching the cinematics, and maybe I replayed Warcraft in between that time, and then when I rewatched that cinematic, I was like, "Whoa!" Like I think that it's not too late to really appreciate it and get into it. Not that you have to, but like there's something about the Arthas story specifically too that really just hits so good. I don't know.
All right, well, we're kind of winded down now. I just have like a couple extra questions for you. They'll be pretty easy. I know you've got stuff to do, Josh, but real quick, Horde or Alliance?
Oh man. Oh
Mm,
man. All right.
careful.
I have played Horde through Classic. I played Alliance in Vanilla. Okay, so that's the layout for you. How do I feel about things? I have loved playing Horde and seeing the other content that I missed in Classic, right? I really, really have. And I enjoy playing Horde and I will continue playing Horde. Having said that, I really miss the Alliance. And I know it breaks some hearts of people to hear me say that, but I truly, honestly believe, and I actually throw this a little bit, well, it's hard. I was going to say I throw this back on the developers, but I mean, they had to get a certain theme and motif across with the Horde that I think they did achieve. But I just find the pure aesthetics and love of design that went into the Alliance cities. It's not that they didn't put the same effort into the Horde cities, but the Horde cities have to send across such a less complicated theme, if you know what I mean. Like they're supposed to be less developed. You know, the
Right.
orcs are building a new home in Orgrimmar. It's not supposed to be this beautifully fantastic, 100-year-old
Age-old
city or
city,
whatever. Yeah, exactly. So they
The Alliance are
achieved their
prettier
goal.
too.
I miss Stormwind so badly. I miss it so much because I spent so much time. I was a goblin back in vanilla. I spent so much time in the auction house, and that's how I made all my money. So I don't even want to know how many hours I spent in Stormwind. For whatever reason, Ironforge wasn't my city of choice. It was Stormwind, and I just lived outside that mailbox in that auction house. And the music like rings in my head, and I've created an Alliance character in Classic, and when I go to Stormwind I just fall apart and just go, oh my god, I'm missing this.
Well,
And Patricia, my
Then
wife, wants to start an Alliance character, and like, but not yet. She's still like maybe when TBC drops, and I'm just busting to get there.
Well, start
okay,
on
so
our
you
server
guys
with
both
us.
need to just start an Alliance character on Whitemane, and we'll go from there.
Yep. And I mean, you actually, you're kind of like me, but opposite. Like we played Alliance in vanilla, but then we re-rolled Horde TBC through Kata, and I'm super excited to see what the Alliance is like now in TBC and Wrath. So,
Well,
yeah.
the thing that you're missing, just a small hint, it's not as cool as Arthas coming back, but when you walk into Stormwind, I mean, I think the most iconic thing is those amazing statues of like the great heroes. And if you
Yeah.
don't know, these are the people who they went on an expedition to Outlands. Like they're the ones who went to Draenor, and they're all presumed dead. But really, all of them in like WoW lore, they're all basically just missing in Outlands. So there is like some cool tie back to I've been coming to the city this entire expansion, these statues never really meant anything to me. And unfortunately, you just get like really tidbits. Like they mention them in quests and stuff when you go to Outlands, but there was something there to
Can you
really
read those
connect that
quests?
alliance.
Yeah. I
To
love that. I thought you were
Outlands.
going to say for a second. I thought you were going to say for a second that the best part about Stormwind was Topper McNabb.
All right, so last two questions. The first one is like, so you've told me you plan to keep Countdown to Classic going into TBC, which is awesome. Why didn't you keep it going through Classic? Like it was so like I've re-listened to a bunch of episodes. It was so good. Why didn't you keep it going?
It was burnout. It was burnout that my listeners warned me about. That I had the hubris of thinking I would not fall under the spell of. I thought I had the energy of a 21-year-old. Nothing could touch me. I was invincible. I was bulletproof. This show is going so well, as if I would get sick of it. And early on, my listeners were like, you have to stop or you will just, you'll quit because you'll be so burnt out. And that's unfortunately what happened in the end. Luckily enough, it didn't happen for quite some time. The show went on for a year and a half before it really set in. But pure and simple, I had to stop virtually ignoring my beautiful wife. I had to stop being so obsessive over the show. I was just ready. I was tired. I was done. And I sort of like also I achieved the goals that I'd set out. So, the show got really big. I interviewed all the people I wanted to interview, except for my one final goal that I don't think will ever come to pass. Is all I've ever wanted from the show is to interview a current employee of Blizzard to come on my show and talk about World of Warcraft. That's a whole nother can of worms.
So hard.
They won't do it. They do not like the classic community. They want nothing to do with this. They want nothing but layup questions from fucking people that will ask them. If you show any semblance of intelligence, they do not want to ask people who can ask follow-up questions, and you have to toe the company line, and that is not us, unfortunately.
Dude, you would have. Oh, we did the Owl recap podcast. We interviewed players. You wouldn't believe the amount of things they made me take out, things that were not needing to be taken out. And that was not Blizzard. It was the teams. But I mean, still, like, it was just, yeah.
That's almost why I don't want to do it, because that does not sit well with me. And I've talked to Patricia about this. Yeah, I've talked to Patricia about this, and we kind of disagree on this one, where I've said to her, if for whatever reason the opportunity came up to, like, it was floated out there by a Blizzard employee very recently, last month. Hey, we might get you an interview with Holly, and I haven't heard any word on it since. And it might still happen. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but my gut tells me it won't happen. And Patricia's been like, what would you do if you interviewed her? And I was like, I would go full hog and ask all the questions people want to hear. And she was like, what would you do if they started telling you couldn't ask questions about a certain topic, or if they edited stuff out? I'd be like, well, then I probably wouldn't do the interview, because I'd rather not talk to them at all than have stuff, than just be a voice for their script. Yep. But then Patricia's like, but that's very, you can't, it's also, you're throwing away an opportunity. Right. Do you really want to be that sort of pig-headed about it to the point that you blow the chance to get a foot in the door? And I think
you just make it clear that you can't talk about these topics, right? Like at the beginning of your episode, you say, hey, I'm going to have an interview with this person, and just so you know, I could not ask anything about X, Y, and Z subjects.
Literally, when I sent you the questions for your interview, you saw that I said, hey, Josh, let me know if you want me to add or take out any questions. That's learned behavior because of working with Overwatch League teams.
Right. I see. But yeah, that's always been the goal. I will still rest easy if it never comes to pass. But again, we could do a whole nother 2-hour episode on my thoughts on Blizzard's communications department and the way in which they manipulate the media. I think it is ridiculous. They are just a coward of a company. But and Mel, you would appreciate this. Everything that we eviscerate them for publicly is actually the right business decision to make.
Yeah.
It is their marketing team being smart and not exposing themselves to critique in a negative way, so that all the press you see out there in the world about Blizzard is positive. And it's the smart decision, but it's not one that sits well with customers.
Right.
But anyway,
But
that's
also,
another.
they could say probably would sit worse with customers in one day or another. You know what I mean? Like, if they let them just go out, there's a lot that would be like, whoa.
Yeah, trust me, Bob and Mel and Yip, the conversation about, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, the tongue-in-cheek conversation about the Blizzard state media is real and a deep one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
definitely,
I think that not having BlizzCon has really been a struggle, right? Because that's where we got a lot of our one-on-one interviews last year at BlizzCon. No, the year before at BlizzCon. But I think that it's a great place to kind of make those connections and get those ins and have people that you can meet face to face and talk to and then build from there.
And I know a lot of Blizzard employees, and they're not all shields. I think like it's the finance guys that are the enemy, and I think there's a lot of employees that feel that too. And
yeah,
right.
There's a bit of Kool-Aid drinking going on, but yeah, I don't like to make it sound like everyone who works there is of a certain type. But anyway, back to the show and you know why I ended it. That's kind of why. But in talking about the TBC side of things, yeah, I have intimated that the show would keep going post-launch, but to be honest with you, I like to keep the door open. It's something where I've sort of said, I want the ability to sort of just do the show when I want. And I would like to live in a reality where, you know what, if a month or two go by between episodes, then so be it. And I just do one when I feel like it. But
yeah, you talk
the
when
show
there's
will
something to talk about.
definitely. Yeah. And the show, you know, to the disappointment of the listeners, perhaps to hear this, yes, post-launch, the show is not going to occur very often. I'm ramping. I'm trying to do them as often as I can now, without burning out, to do right by the community. But I'm getting much closer to considering retirement once TBC launches than people probably realize.
Oh no! See, it's weird because we first started this podcast because I was just like, "There's no podcasts." Like everybody did, like you. A lot of YouTubers, podcasters burnt out and just stopped doing them, and there was no podcast. So I was like, "Well, I'm just going to make my own." So we decided to make an hour-long podcast every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, because we thought there wouldn't be much to talk about, all of a sudden, it's a 2-hour podcast every week, and it's just like, and we're not running out of stuff to talk about. It's crazy, but I hope you keep going because I really, really love your show. But aside from the podcast, what about, this is the last question, what about your plans in game for TBC? Because you've gotten kind of hardcore here, like you said earlier, in the last few months. Like, are you going to do TBC? Hardcore?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've become a sweaty player, but I can feel myself getting sweatier, if that makes sense. I have, but it's a shame as well, because as you start to get more familiar with the game, you do start to shake that happy-go-lucky vibe with the game, and you start to expect more of yourself. You start to expect more of your guildies. And I have started to become irritated by mistakes in a way that I never was before, because now I am pushing at a higher level and I am understanding my classes more and more. And I do know what a maximum efficiency rotation entails. And it's silly for me to say this because I'm still the person who I've sort of dug my heels in the sand with Classic, and it's so funny because everyone would throw away everything I say when I hear this. I don't do enchants. I don't do consumables. I don't do world buffs. I have been really bullish on that and refuse to. And people say that's very selfish of me, but I run pugs, so I'm not in a guild, so it's not quite as bad. I don't feel guilty turning up to a pug run without world buffs or anything. And like the beauty of it then is it's ZGs, it's MCs, it's BWLs. I enjoy finishing on top of people with enchants, with world buffs, with consumables on the overall damage charts, because some of them, not all of them, don't get me wrong, a lot of them fucking smoke me, but some of them feel that it gives them the right to not push their buttons anymore because they put in all the work to, oh, I'm so powerful now. Well, yeah, but you've still got to do stuff. Whereas I'm in there, and when you don't have enchants and when you don't have consumables, when you don't have world buffs, no one is fucking working harder in that raid than me to prove to people that I'm not some dickhead who's just there for free loot.
Yeah, not to put Bob on blast, but we definitely
I was just about
attitude in our guild.
I was just about to put myself on blast.
Any higher? I don't have Darkmoon Fair buff this week. I don't have War Chief's Blessing this week, and it's like. Play better, like there are definitely things you can do.
Dude, I struggle with this. Like, it's a very slippery slope. This actually is a slippery slope. The more you learn about the game, the more you're going to get upset with people that screw up, because you start to feel internally that you've put in this time to do all this research, yada, 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 and then all of a sudden you're getting irked by people not doing it. And it's rough. Like, the more you learn, and you'll see that's why so many people that know so much are the biggest dicks. Like, it's because they've gotten to that point and they're like, why aren't you at this point? And
right.
It's a real
It's just
rough
like anything
thing.
else in life. When you know it really well and it seems common sense, other people doing it wrong, you're just like mind blown. Like, what's happening? But I do have one question for you, Josh, is, so it sounded like in Classic you played, or not in Classic, in Vanilla, you played kind of as a loner rogue doing your own thing. And then you came back and now you're playing Classic and you're not a loner because you have your podcast community and your, guild and different things. But is there a reason you didn't decide to fully immerse yourself into a guild that plays and queers content and does different things than maybe you experienced before?
Because it's hard, right?
Well, no. I mean, I slightly mentioned this before, but didn't go into great detail on it in terms of, like, yes, that loner element of my gameplay still does rear its head to this day. Not as much as it did 15 years ago, but I am still, and it's true in real life as well. Patricia could probably tell you this, but like, I tend not to try to, either rely on the help of other people, or I'm very hard to win over. Like, I take my time making friends. I keep people at an arm's length and watch them from afar before I go, okay, this is my kind of person. Now I want to spend a lot of time with them. All of my best friends in the world will tell you I was a dick to them the first, few times that we met. He didn't fucking say anything, and he was really like, blah, blah, blah. And now they can't shut me up, and we're great friends. And, but like, that's just me. But
I feel like I would have been like you if I didn't have Bob, to be honest. Because Bob told me, he says, we're joining this guild. And I was like, we're not going to join that guild, Bob. Like, what do we have to bring to it? No, I'm not going to make friends. I literally didn't talk in the guild for a month.
How did you feel about how strong I came on to become your friend, Josh?
Yeah, no, it's easier. Like, when we're not playing together, I find it easier to bond with people over this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? We all love World of Warcraft. Let's be mates and talk. But when we're in game and we're doing the content together, and we're actually like sharing an experience in and trying to achieve a common goal, I'm kind of like, yeah, I was like that, Mel. I didn't talk, like, I've found a new guild recently. I didn't talk to them for a month, and now I'm in voice chat, slowly but surely getting involved.
Right.
But what I'm sort of getting at is, I didn't raid much through Classic, and that's why I could afford to be the guy that didn't have enchants, that didn't do consumables, that didn't do world buffs. I was, like I said, I've got 6 characters at level 60. The reason for that is I just leveled and leveled and leveled for the vast majority of the Classic lifespan. And people go, hey, how the fuck do you have 6 characters? Because all I've done is level for a year and a half.
But do you regret that? Do you wish you would have gotten a character to 60? And
yeah,
I guess you can't regret it because you don't know what it is. You know what I mean?
Yes and no. So I don't regret the fact that now coming into TBC, I have 6 alts. That's freaking fantastic. And like I said, out of those 6 characters, one level on one character was mage boosted.
Good for you.
So outside of that, I do regret it because now I'm falling in love with raiding, and I'm kind of like, oh, where has this been all my
What did I
life?
miss?
What?
Yeah.
Why didn't? And I had a raiding guild, and I'm friends with all these guys in this Australian guild, and they were always kind of like, yeah, why doesn't Josh raid with us? And I was like, because I'm casual. I like to level. It's what I do. And I was terrible at the game, but now I'm getting better, and now I'm falling in love with raiding, and that's why I've been pugging the crap out of the game over the last few months, because I'm like, wow, BWL is a lot of fun. Wow, MC is like my favorite raid in the game. So with TBC coming, I will be the guy who gets all the enchants. I will be the guy who picks up fucking enchanting for the best in slot ring enchant. I will be the guy who constantly has consumes, hopefully, if I can afford it. I will be the guy that looks to raid and take down the content, because I do regret, if I could go back in time, I do wish that I was going through Molten Core with everyone at the time, doing it and getting excited about it. So that's why I'm sort of excited for fresh classic servers as well. It gives me a chance to do it again with this new mindset. But yeah, for TBC, I'm quite interested in being not the sweatiest player, but sweatier than I have been to this point.
Awesome, yeah.
Right, and we're not the sweatiest. And it's funny because you say you're like excited to go back to Classic and try it that way, which we all did it that way, and we're done. We're
we did Molten Core for going on 2 years. So, but I think also though, Mel and I just got really lucky. We just happenstanced into the guild Vargflagen, and it's a bunch of really good people and lots of knowledgeable people and lots of people that aren't forcing you to be sweaty. And so we got lucky. I think it's a really hard, there's a lot of people that ask me how to find a guild, and I don't have a good answer for them because we just got lucky. And maybe, I don't know.
I'll be honest, I don't think we got, I like the guild. I love the guild, but to be honest, starting from phase 1, I feel like we just had to pound the guild into what it is now. Like you bring on personalities who maybe don't mesh, and they leave and they gain, and you try to find your place. We struggle with how sweaty are we? Do we demand people to consume? Do we demand people world buff? There are all these things that eventually, and now we've ended up in a position where everyone is like really on the same page, I think.
Right, but we got lucky in the fact that we got lucky to join a guild that had the leadership to make those things happen, right? Not that we got lucky that the guild we joined had the same exact people and we're killing it. No, that's not the case. But we got lucky to join a guild that the leadership was able to modify things and do what they needed to do to make us continue to stay together. And we're at Nax and we're still here.
All right, well, Josh,
sorry, man. Well, one last thing, if it's okay, if we've got the time.
No, I was going to ask you any closing thoughts.
Yeah. So just the final thought on everything we just talked about in terms of being lucky of finding the right guilds. Like, I've really gained such a deeper understanding of the community, particularly over the last few months, because I've been diving in the raiding waters a bit more, and everything that people have talked about on my show for so long finally makes sense to me that I never really understood before, where you absolutely have to find something that fits like a glove for you. And there's no wrong answer for a guild. A guild can be whatever they want to be if they're having fun as a collective, right? And my example was I joined a guild on one of my alts about 3 months ago. And they were a brand new guild. And they were like, hey guys, we are a brand new guild, funnily enough, of relatively fresh 60s, even though it's very late into Classic. And we are going to be tackling the content on a progressive basis, like you guys were a year ago. So we're only just about to step into Molten Core. If anyone has an alt and you're interested and you want to go through that progression with us for a bit of shits and gigs, join the guild. And I was like, that sounds lovely. I would love to do that. So on my Warlock that had no gear, I signed up with my pre-bis or close to my pre-bis, and was looking forward to doing some ZG and some MC with these guys. And it was all great, and they were lovely people. So I signed up for a ZG, and we get in there. And as I said, as confirmed in voice chat, just really, really nice, salt of the earth people. But they proceed to struggle through ZG, and they take 3.5 hours to finish ZG, and they didn't even down Hakar. And they really struggled with the concept of all the fights. And even though we explain like, hey, corrupted blood, you've got to move away from people, blah, 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 it just wasn't happening. And that was the moment where I had this epiphany where I was like, am I the prick? Have I lived long enough to become the villain? Because I was screaming at home. Lawn. Yeah, I wasn't having a go at them. I didn't want to be that guy, but my microphone's off and I'm screaming like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh my God. And the tables had turned where I was once that guy, and now I've leveled up somewhat to know a little bit more where I'm not that person anymore. But everything is relative, because now I think of, I take like your guys' guild, for example, or even I've got a guild with some Australians who are relatively hardcore with the game, but there's always a bigger fish. And there's, your onslaughts or your speed running top 1%ers who look at what is objectively a very good guild still and go, oh my God, I could never run with those fuckers. They don't know shit. You know what I mean? It's just finding what's right for you and getting lucky.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, we're in a semi-hardcore guild, and we were very excited when we downed Nax in one night, in a 3-hour night, right? Like, that was huge for us. We were like, wow, we did it. And again, then we went last week and wiped in BWL. Like, whatever. Sorry, don't talk about that.
We didn't talk about our raid this week for a reason.
Moving on. We're amazing.
All right. Well, this has been a great show. Josh, do you have any last things to say about anything we've talked about before I start going into closing?
No, I just want to give you guys a word of encouragement and just say, look, it's all well and good to sort of say, yeah, I've had a fun time with Countdown to Classic and yay and everything. It's been fun the collection of episodes I built up in the past and everything. But I'm really looking forward to the future and with what you guys are doing. It's more, even if I do wind up walking off into the sunset, I really encourage, people like you to keep doing what you're doing. Prospective podcasters out there or YouTubers out there who have thought about doing it but have never had the confidence to actually pull the trigger. By all means, do it. Keep going. All three of you here, I just want to give you my undying love and affection for taking the time out to provide the community with these conversations that, whether you know it or not, there are people worldwide who enjoy spending time with you and thank you, whether they say it or not, for taking time out of your personal life to entertain people that you don't know. So just keep doing what you're doing, guys, and much love to you.
Thank you. And I would echo that to like all the new YouTubers. I'm checking out you new guys. I'm loving it. Keep the content coming. Like, I'm loving it. Like, I want more content because it's all I consume at the moment. So please.
And can we all take a moment to just say, Josh, don't quit what you're doing. We love you.
Yeah, we really do.
And if you're going to quit, your only excuse is to come to Whitemane and play Alliance and join our guild.
Well, I think what's the server that we're probably going to roll on? Oh God, what server do they play on? And yeah, wherever Lionface is, I think it's. Oh man, someone in chat is going to help me. Mike, what's the name of the server? I've forgotten. But anyway, I think we do have a server in mind.
Well, can I entice you by telling you?
That's been the worst part about WoW Classic is not being able to play with all my... Smolder Web, thank you so much, Mike. Smolder Web is the server that we're probably going to roll on if we do get round to those Alliance characters. But easily the worst part is not being able to play with friends, because the beta is teaching me right now. I'm playing with regular guests of mine. I'm playing with... The other day I played with Ale, Def Camp, Melderon. We're spamming dungeons in the beta. We're having the time of our lives. Not because we're playing the beta necessarily, but because we're playing together, and we've been friends for a couple of years now.
Def Camp and Melderon are amazing.
It blows my mind that we haven't been able to play together, and it's
Well, if I can entice you a little bit more, Whitemane is 50-50 Horde and Alliance currently, so...
It's the US thing is so hard because of the time differences. But yeah, I'll always consider it.
US West.
Yeah, and ping and all that.
So is White Man. All right.
All right. Well, we're gonna end out the show. It was a great show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at WC Reloaded. You can also follow the Mash Those Buttons Network at the Mash Network. If you want to send us a long-form message or a story, you can do so by sending an email to wcrpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to join our Discord for all the shows on the MASH network, that's mash.gg/Discord. How can you help the podcast out? Well, reviews are the best way. iTunes, and then you can also leave reviews at warcraftradio.com/directory. Oh, and then, yeah, don't forget to do our YouTube stuff, but the podcast has gone on too long, so listen to the top of the show for the information on that. Where can we find you, Yip?
You can find me on Twitter at Cognitive Pit or on YouTube, youtube.com/Cognitive Pit. You can see some grinding videos. I'm going to be putting out some TBC beta grinding videos, stuff to do when your weak dungeon grinding group goes to bed. So...
And Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch, or you can find me on Whitemane at MelArena. I don't think there's an at, but on MelArena.
Hey, Josh, plug everything you got.
All right, I'll throw out 2 plugs I don't normally get out there. No one listen to Countdown to Classic. It's a terrible podcast. The podcast you should be listening to is The Cinephiles, SINNER, second word, FILES, The Cinephiles. Look, honestly, guys.
It is really good.
You know, if you have any kind of love or affection for movies, and particularly older movies like your 2000s, 90s, and 80s, please do go and have a listen. Just listen to the movies that you know, to the movies. There's 150 episodes there. We will have covered a movie that you love, you know, particularly our more recent stuff. Find something that you love and check it out, and hopefully you get a chuckle out of it. The second thing I would plug is my Twitter at Josh Corbett Pods. I am the only WoW content creator, for reasons that I'm quite certain I know of but won't go into, who has had a decreasing Twitter follower number over the last 2 years. And while it's funny how every other WoW content creator who's big, a year ago they had 5,000 followers. Now they've got 85,000 followers. It's almost like there's something going on. And I've lost like 200 people over the same lifespan, because I don't do anything funny with or funky with Twitter followers. But yeah, check out my Twitter.
And that's Josh Corbett with 2 T's for anybody.
That's right. CORBETT.
All right. Well, this was a fantastic episode. Like, I hate to leave it, but we've got to go, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, hosts. Bye. And we're still live. Hosts, and guests, please just bear with me for 2 seconds. I have to do the live drawing for that giveaway really quick, and then we'll go offline. I'm sorry.
All good.
If I can get it to come up. So I've got everybody for the I hate giveaways where they don't show it live, because I feel like, they just pick somebody. So I'm gonna do it live.
Better pick doofers.
And hold on.
You can give away everybody's personal information, though.
It's just their YouTube handles.
Okay.
All right, so we're pulling this up on an Excel spreadsheet. We're gonna do random.org.
Certain looking. Here we go. Okay, I'm watching live. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Wait a minute.
Random.org. All right, so we're gonna do. Oh shit, I didn't see.
How does this work? I can see multiple entries.
We have yes, because they could get up to 4 entries for the 4 videos. So there's 43 total.
All right,
we're gonna do random.org. If I can get to it, you do random.org 1 to 43, and we'll see who's the winner. So number 33 is the winner. Number 33 is Saint Nicolo. I think I said that right. Saint Nicolo. I'm going to reply to one of your comments to give you information on how to get a hold of us to prove that it is you. So, all right. Sorry, guys. I had to put you through that.
What did they win? What do they win? A Blizzard survey?
They win this.
Yeah, they win half the cost of copying your character too.
Yeah. They win a $20 gift card.
Well, congratulations.
All right,
Congrats.
guys. Sorry, no after show tonight. Thank you guys in chat for coming, and we will see you the next time.
See you.